That's pretty funny what you said there, David.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking,
I think I got a 36 baud modem connecting us
36 baud.
today. I think
Hey.
30.
You got 28 eights and then 56K.
You got a 56K? You upgraded a 56K?
Yeah. I had a 33.6 baud modem. That was a lot of fun.
Is
the
it
very
a
first modem I had
PCMCIA?
was
Are you using
2400 baud.
Woo! Look at that. There you go.
That's like a 19200 right there, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
I'm killing it. It works with Windows 95 and Windows 2 and 3.
Now I would give you the Retro Legacy Award of the Year if that was a PCMCIA card.
No, it's just a modem. It's an actual.
Oh, okay. So it's an external modem. Plug into the serial port. Wow, that's probably pre-USB.
It's made for Zoom calls, apparently.
Yeah, it's probably pre-USB days.
Yeah, that's my Zoom. That's how I fax from Zoom.
Well, hey, everybody. I am Jim Gast, and welcome to the Reboot with my two friends today. Guys, introduce yourselves.
David Luft with LDD Consulting out of Albuquerque, New Mexico.
And I am David Groot with WinStar Technologies out of Culpeper, Virginia.
As they say, he is Groot, right?
I am Groot.
The original Groot. The real
right.
Groot, please stand up.
That's right.
And once again, I'm Jim Gast with Splicing Consulting out of Cincinnati. So we are real excited about talking about the topic today, although we don't want to have to talk about the topic today. It's really important to talk about this topic today. With the turmoil that's going on, with the potentially impending attack from Russia on its neighbors, it could really be a bad thing for all of us here in the United States, depending on how we get involved or not. So today, I would say, is mostly about circling our wagons. Would you guys agree?
Yes. No, I mean, today it is about doing all the same things that we've been saying people should be doing all along. But yeah, it's becoming more and more apparent. And I think, inevitable.
I mean, if we don't have this conversation, I hate to have conversations over and over and over again, but it seems as though it resonates with people at different times over different situations, right? I'll tell you when I get the biggest call to help an organization with a security problem, it's after they've had an attack. And then it's too late, right?
Yeah. After somebody breaks into your building, that's when you get the alarm system.
Yeah, for the next time. And what's the odds of the next time, right? I mean, albeit high odds, right? It already happened. You've already lost a boatload of money, and we need to try to prevent that from happening in advance. So let's talk about this cyber attack thing from Russia. David, would you kind of tell me tell our audience why this is a concern, what your concern is about it?
Okay. So, certainly, as you know, Russia is kind of infringing on Ukraine's borders, and there's a lot of turmoil, as you stated. And, this morning, I wake up and I turn on the news, and what are the TVs talking about? Well, they're talking about the fact that, Russia could very well start launching cyber attacks against different infrastructure inside the United States, because what we're doing is we're putting in sanctions to financially try and hurt Putin while he's, invading another country. And so I have been for several years now. I wrote a book called The Threat is Real in 2018. And I said then, and I say today, we are at war. We have been at war. World War III is currently taking place. Nobody knows it yet, but it's happening. We're all involved. Nobody's exempt. And I'm not trying to be over here I'm just telling you, Russia is no different than any other nation state who has their interests over ours. They are going to take any opportunity they have to both attack our infrastructure as well as our businesses and our economy and our way of life. And they have been for a long time preparing for these things. As have we. We just need to hope that we're better at it than they.
You got it. Now let's talk about how that trickles down to small business a little bit. I'll tell you that I got a call from a new customer on Monday. That new customer called us up and said that their email was hacked. And so, we helped them out. We remedied the problem. But the comment from the guy was, why would anybody want to hack our email? We're such a small company, such a small organization, like 5, 10 people or something like that. What does that matter? Why would they want to get, and it's an email account that there's no use for, and they spam that from that email account. So in other words, they broke into the account, and instead of infiltrating further into their organization, just used it to resend emails, spam emails to wherever, right? So guys, can you kind of tell me a little bit about why a hacker would want to do that?
Well, they're not looking to a specific location typically. Sometimes they might for larger organizations like the government, but they're just knocking on everybody's door. And when the door opens up, they're like, it's free. I'm walking in and helping myself. So they don't necessarily care who it is, because when they can send those emails out, it looks like it's from a legitimate thing. And that just helps them infiltrate other people.
So they basically use them as a parlay. You know, they just basically parlayed off of them. They, ricocheted off of them a known good entity, right, to hack other people potentially.
Right. So this is the six layers to Kevin Bacon syndrome.
Okay, one guy right there. Which one first?
Go ahead, David.
Okay. No, you go ahead, David. You were on a roll.
Oh, wow. Come on, David.
I was going to the gym this weekend, and I got an email from it that says, make sure you lock your doors, because we've had a lot of people going around just checking doors on the cars to see if somebody left them open. They don't know that there's nothing in my car. If I leave the door open, they're checking. And if they can get in there, they're going to see what they can get.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you got to make sure we're locking our doors.
That's right. David?
Yeah, it comes down to, in my mind, why would somebody want to hack my business email? Well, like you all said, they don't even know who they're hacking half the time. It's all automated. It's scripts. It's just knocking on doors, trying to find an opening, and then seeing if they can get in and do things. But the bottom line is, as I mentioned, and probably didn't say it right or whatever, but how many layers of people do you know till you get to Kevin Bacon or whatever, right? It's no different. It's supply chain. You are a part of a supply chain. I don't care how big or small, how important or unimportant you feel you are in the ecosystem. If I can hack your legitimate email server and use that for the purpose of launching an email attack against a bigger company or a bigger target or a higher rich target, that works, right? Because you have relationships with people who trust you. And so the supply chain is a very big part of, you have to be considering where you're storing your data, the different vendors you're using, who's your cleaning crew, all those things matter.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to talk about the Ricochet idea for a minute more. And everybody says, well, I don't have any customers or vendors that are involved in the bigger infrastructure in the United States that would potentially be hacked by using me as a Ricochet point. I argue that most people don't realize how it works. So, and I know my company, we just dealt with Bureau of Workers' Compensation, right? And we deal with power companies, and we deal with, so on and so on and so on. And imagine if I get hacked, right, and somebody uses an email account with my organization and then sends a bogus email account to the power company, to anything, right? And somebody at one of the organizations falls prey to whatever it is, that's where it can take effect. And we can actually, if the Russians were trying to do something, or any hacker for that matter, were trying to do something, they've now effectively accomplished their goal. I used to use the old analogy. Everybody has a USB stick, right? And so imagine you're at a restaurant and there's a USB stick on the ground. Okay. Everybody thinks to themselves, well, if I pick that up and I take it back to my office and put it in my computers, now I'm hacked. But if you take a step back from that and think maybe the person picking it up is not the target. Maybe the person picking it up is a good Samaritan and give it to their server at that restaurant, who then gives it to their office, their restaurant manager, then sticks it in a computer, only to have their point of sale system and credit card numbers scammed all the time. That Good Samaritan facilitated the hack, but in fact thought that they were they were the prey, right?
Mhm.
So we can't think that way anymore. We have to think outside of the box. Is a good analogy, right?
Right.
And so, all right, there's the scenarios, right? Let's talk about eliminating the potential scenarios. First things, guys. What's the easiest and first thing to do? In from a cybersecurity perspective, you guys have like just a go-to. This is the number one thing you should do.
Backup.
I like that. I'll take that.
I mean, that back up and do it well, right? If you get ransomware, it's the only option you have. I mean, it really is.
Maybe, right?
I'm sorry?
Maybe it's the only option you have.
No, I mean, yeah, okay.
And you did say done right. You did say done right. I'll give you that much. Explain that, though.
Well, I mean, done right, meaning that it's being verified, it's being stored offsite, it's not connected to the same network that could potentially be compromised at rest. It's encrypted, all the best practices for handling of sensitive data.
Right.
And so, if that's done right, and then you do have an incident, it can still cause you harm, the company harm and what have you, but you are able to potentially get your stuff back in business.
Yep.
It does not remove liability from you being a good steward of that data, or that data being exfiltrated and posted on the web, or anybody's personal information being breached, or any of that kind of stuff, but it will certainly allow the operations of your business to get back into play.
I think that's it. And nobody really thinks of backup as security. To me, it's the number one most important security, without a question.
And the silly thing is, the other one is patching. It's just doing updates.
Yeah.
On everything.
David Luff, do you have a go-to?
I would say it's just every time you go to the dentist, they ask you if you floss, and everybody just kind of takes it for granted that, oh, yeah, sure, I floss. But they may not be. Do you have secure passwords, and do you have MFA enabled?
Mm-hmm.
Because email is going, like you said, is going to be critical, because that's how they're going to get into everything. And with all of this chaos going around, people are so distracted, they're even more likely to click on a bad email.
Yeah.
And so that's critical to make sure you have multi-factor and password set up. Yeah.
I think that multi-factor is a backup, and multi-factor and secure passwords, right? Good.
Don't use the password for everything.
Yeah, I can't do that.
I feel like a dentist when you tell that to people all the time. Are you flossing?
I think the other big thing is employee or staff training, right, and awareness. It needs to be a culture, and it needs to be discussed openly and constantly.
Yep.
You just need to be reminding people on a daily basis that, hackers are going to send an email that's going to trigger an emotion that's going to make you do something, and that's their whole goal, right? So just be thinking before you click, or whatever the catchphrase is you want to use for that particular thing. Pay very close attention to what you're doing.
I think that advanced email security is just as important. I think you've got to have the backup. I think you got to have the two-factor. Those are really crucial. I'd probably put those in almost before anything else. But advanced email security, and I'll let either one of you kind of go into what you consider to be advanced email security.
I mean, we're talking on the minimum.
Not
a spam filter. I'm not talking about spam filters, guys.
But those are important too, because they'll help filter some of the garbage out to help protect you.
Impersonation prevention, where somebody does an I or an L, or does a 0 and an O, right, an email address, or even just doesn't even do that good of a job faking the email address, but makes the signature line and all that stuff look very official. So impersonation. What about web links in emails? Do you guys think rewriting of web links so they're inspected when somebody clicks on them?
Yeah, I like the rewritten or the sandbox, right?
Yeah.
When they click the link, it's opening it up in a sandbox before it actually delivers the payload to you. right? So it's testing for that.
Elaborate a little bit more simplistically on that one, if you don't mind.
So, I mean, I guess if I'm going to make it as simple as possible, there's a process that happens when you click on the link back at the server. That website is visited, opened up, seeing if there's any malicious payload before it then delivers that click back to you.
Yep. It's evaluating what you're downloading before you download it.
Yeah.
It's
a middleman, right? It's
It's
kind of like you're in prison and your mail's being read and redacted before you get it. Right?
Okay. I've never been in prison myself, but
I see TV all the time.
It's on movies. Now,
it's got to be true. It's on the internet.
Yeah, it's on the internet. But you know what? Let me ask you a question on that. Does it slow down that return of that website to the end user?
A little bit.
Not enough for them to necessarily notice. Though.
That's what I always say. It's not appreciable, right?
Not given the protection you're getting.
I think the 56K modem we're using for our show is probably slower than.
I mean, if you look at it, does it take longer to get in your front door if you have to unlock it with a key?
No, not really.
It does.
It does, but you don't.
You got to unlock the door and walk in. If you didn't have a lock on your door, you could just walk right in. But
you know what? Just pushing this little button to unlock my car makes it take longer to get in my car.
Right. But those are all secure things. So even if it takes it's going to add up and be a little more inconvenient, but you need it for security.
Yeah, and right along with that, attachments, right? It's a little bit easier to filter out attachments in an email before it gets to you than inspect a web link. So attachment inspection, I think that's a good one.
I mean, there's just so many different concepts there, right? You're talking that should be happening at the email server, that should be happening at the firewall, that should be happening at the machine on the local endpoint protection. There are 4 different places that attachment should be scrutinized before you ever even know it exists.
But with all this, okay, what the heck does antivirus do anymore?
So anymore, antivirus is really a misnomer, right? Antivirus, in its technical sense, is not as important as it used to be. Anti-malware potentially could be put higher on that list, and then detection and response is the key, right? So right now we're looking for stuff that can actually help remediate the problems. It can isolate a machine when it detects that there's an infection. It's using AI and machine learning, those kinds of things.
Yeah. The one problem I have is that no one ever talks about this kind of stuff, and an antivirus can't stop this. One of the things you just mentioned, David, detection and response. What if a user account is elevated to an administrative account on your network? Okay. What kind of software can detect that? Now, that to me is like a second layer, second level of protection, but that kind of stuff happens when an attack makes it past the first layer.
Yeah, that's, that's potentially EDR can have the capabilities of watching that lateral movement or that elevation in privilege, but it's also your SIM platforms, right? Your security event monitoring can help catch those particular events as well.
Yeah. But that does no good if you don't have level 1 stuff that we just talked about.
Correct.
So backup, multi-factor authentication, email security, backup done right, by the way.
Yeah.
Do we back up our email in the cloud?
Sure. You should back up everything.
Yeah, you got it.
Unless you don't want to ever be, archived. Like if you have litigation capability, that's a whole nother story. But
yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
That's where you want to be kind of careful.
So are we saying then the way to not become a victim or to lower the risk of becoming a victim to Russian cyber attacks is to just basically do the fundamentals to start with?
I would go ahead, David.
No, ultimately you got to be paying attention to the training that you guys talked about for social awareness is just huge.
Yeah.
Because most attacks come from human mistakes.
They do.
So to me, it can be summed up as simply as, awareness, fundamental security practices, and then a plan. A plan is critical, meaning what happens when one of us gets hit, right? When one person sees something happening to their email or their files and they can't open them, what do you do? What's the response that I should be taking? How can I minimize this? How can I keep it to? Because look, back in the old days, 1994, when the internet was becoming a public domain and everybody was jumping on, right? We didn't worry about these kinds of events like that. Cybersecurity back then wasn't like it is today. One time can literally just take away everything you have. It's gone. It's all tied to the web.
I've seen it. We've seen it. We've all seen it. So, all right. So, do your part. Protect yourself from cyber attacks. Not just during this time, but all the time. Do the fundamentals. If you're not doing the fundamentals, get to it. We gave you some of the fundamentals. If you are doing the fundamentals, there's more you can do, more you should do, more you can consider. But the fundamentals, and you mentioned patching too, right? The fundamentals are definitely the place to start. So, guys, I appreciate being on today.
Thanks for having us.
Everybody, see you next week. Remember, the reboot is on Wednesdays, 1:30 Eastern time. Without fail. So, thanks a lot, everyone.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.